says dairy farming is the most important commercial agriculture practice on farms near the large urban areas of northeastern United States. Dairying is an important type of farming in Southeast Asia. Inputs and outputs so the farmers are able to trace back and forth in case of pest incursion or disease outbreak. Animal production was besides a high produce in cows. What other commercial species were produced? Other commercial species used besides cows included goats, sheep, and camels. In places like Italy, donkeys were used to alternate milk sources.
What is the model? The Van Tunen model explains and predicts agricultural land use patterns in a theoretical state by varying transportation costs. According to the model, a commercial farmer initially considers which crops to cultivate and which animals to raise based on market location. External influences. The isolated state is completely flat and has no rivers or mountains to interrupt the terrain.
That's a goat and that's a sheep. They're not commonly slaughtered, but they can eat the dead, like the ones that die. Arid and semi-arid areas such as North Africa, the Middle and Central Asia. And it uses camels, goats, sheep, and other cattle. And animal husbandry is the breeding and caring for animals. And then the people, they migrate with their herds.
And this is the culture of ranching. Ranching has had a big impact on Western United States. And the Western U.S. was actually originally influenced by South American countries. So the cowboys here in America, they were originally known as vaqueros in Mexican and South American countries. And vaqueros played a big role in the influence on the Western United States and cowboy culture. Conducted by cowboys on a horseback, ATV, or another vehicle. It can be done for a wide variety of reasons: healthcare, branding, or sharing of sheep. Mainly on ranches, the working animals are horses. Used methods still associated with ranching today, such as using horses for herding, roundups, cattle drives, and branding.
So what is it and how is it grown? It's usually grown using crop rotation, and then the crops from crop rotation are given to the animals to use as feed for livestock. And so crop rotation is when a farm is divided into a number of fields that are planted on a planned cycle. The crops which are planted change annually to avoid nutrient depletion in the soil. Water and food to be sustained. Instead of feeding what is grown on the land directly to the people, it is instead given to the animals, which require more food than humans do. This means that even more land is required to keep up the animals, which in turn leads to deforestation and a loss of biodiversity. And so that's a picture of that. The next one was 3 fields crop rotation system, which was created in Northern Europe in the 8th century. Field A.
Droughts can last for months, and sometimes fruits are grown without irrigation and get their moisture from soil. And irrigation, however, is still used in many Mediterranean regions, especially California. And then along the southern tip of South Africa, and then here up in Europe. The Mediterranean basin, the southern part of South Africa, and then the southern part of Australia. And all of these places share hot and dry summers, mountains that border the sea, and hilly topography. So that's a picture in France, and then a picture from Italy.
Oh, will they really? So it could, I mean, not completely destroy, but it could really snuff out a field.
Genetic material has been altered using techniques in genetics. And this is just a picture showing how it's set up.
Guyana asked that, and she's like she goes on radio stations and just talks about like the environment. So Hawaii is unique in the way that they have people from all around the world living there, not just Asia, but Hawaii is a crisscrossing of paths for workers all over. So most plantations are located in the tropics and subtropics, especially Latin America, Africa, and Asia. So here are like some popular plantations.
The food fish is the most in millions of dollars. Right here I have the grabs. It's the same thing you've seen on the slide, but this is like the value. The other ones were volume. This is just more pictures of aquaculture. Right here is the European aquaculture production percent product type, and it shows that freshwater fish is 34.6% and marine fish is 21.8%. And mussels are 43.6%.
You gotta move to start. Gotta take the first step. You gotta crawl to be tall.
So this is just a close-up picture of how aquaculture is. They have it in these cages, and fish are inside the cages, and so the fish are inside the cages, and the
You gotta let your guard down. You better take a chance.
It's more capital intensive. It's less labor intensive. So basically, you can get more fruit per unit of land.
Villages ensures equal pay. So first, it's honest conversation and transparent agreement, plus 50% payment up front, plus 50% payment of time and export, equals fair wages and no risk for the worker. These are products, these are people that buy the product, that produce the products, which is in yellow. In blue, you have the people who buy the products, and then green is, the producer and the buyer. Okay. And this one is how a factory looks with fair trade. And as you can see, the one with fair trade is more organized, and workers are treated more fairly, better working conditions. What is the fair trade movement? The fair trade movement is a commerce in which products are made and traded according to standards that protect workers and small businesses in developing countries. Members of fair trade movement advocate the payment of higher prices to exporters, as well as improve social and environmental standards.
There's one for you from the crazy horse.
And then it can also cause animals to lose their habitats due to like the deforestation as well.
And then my second question is, based on your answer to the first question, how could an increase in ideas against deforestation and preserving the environment affect shifting culture? And bananas are like also other examples of crops that are grown. And then, so the scale of shifting cultivation, there's like a big gap in between like the land. So after the land has been used, the nutrients in the soil depletes, and the villagers move on to a new plot of land and let like the vegetation on the old plot of land grow back. And they might return to the plot of land from 6 to 20 years later to do all the process again. And this is like a diagram that shows like the process of like cutting down everything, then like clearing it, planting it, and then moving on to a new one. So shifting cultivation can be found in the world's tropical climate regions with like high temperatures and a lot of rainfall because the dense vegetation. And it produces goods and crops for the local community, and it's labor intensive and requires a high percentage of the land's total labor force. So there's 3 types: intensive, shifting cultivation, and pastoral nomadism, but obviously for this project we're going to focus on shifting cultivation. Okay, so what is shifting cultivation? So it's also known as switching agriculture, and it is a form of subsistence agriculture in which people shift activity from one field to another, and each field is used for crops for a relatively few years and left fallow for a relatively long period of time. So the origin of shifting cultivation